Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our North Middlesex Council meeting. It is April 6th. Call this meeting to order. At this time, I would turn the mic over to our clerk, to Jackie, for an introduction.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to introduce to everybody, the council and members of the public, Richard Beachy. He's sitting at our media table this evening. So Richard will be taking on the clerk's duties upon my retirement in June and subsequent mat leave for Ashley. So we'd like to welcome Richard to our first council meeting for North Middlesex with us.
Welcome, Richard. At this time, we'll call for any disclosure of pecuniary interests. If you have any, please forward it to the clerk. Minutes of the previous meeting. It's the minutes for regular council meeting, March 16th. Any business arising or errors or omissions? Seeing none, need a motion. Councillor McClinchy, seconded by Councillor Hemming. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I do need a motion to adjourn our regular meeting and to go into public meetings and committee of adjustment. Deputy Mayor Cornelison, Councillor Keogh, all in favor? Carried. Jackie?
The purpose of the public meeting of council being held under Section 12 of the Development Charges Act 1997 as amended. The purpose is to give the public an opportunity to ask questions, provide comments, and make representation on the development charges background study and proposed bylaw dated April 6. Council will not be taking any action this evening on this report or bylaw. Prior to receiving any public comments, we will ask our consultant Watson and Associates Economists Limited to do a brief presentation of the findings of the study.
Thank you, Jackie. At this time, public meeting, the development charges, and it is Watson and Associates that's going to do this presentation. And I would turn that microphone over to them to start. And he is having to come in by phone, I believe, because we are having some audio issues on the Zoom part of it. But we'll try to make sure everybody can hear. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can everybody hear me?
Try that. Can you hear them? Okay. Yeah, sounds like they can hear.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It's a pleasure to be before you once again tonight. I'll be sharing a presentation on the screen, so if I could just get confirmation that that works, that would be great.
You're good, Daryl.
Okay, perfect. So tonight we'll be talking about the development charges background study process that we've been undertaking with staff over the last few months and going through this public meeting process. So the format for this evening's meeting is to just give a little bit of an overview of the purpose of the public meeting, describe at a high level an overview of development charges, what they are, and why we're using them. We'll present some of the proposed policies and charges that are provided in the background study that was published on the municipality's website. We'll then hear from any presentations from the public, and then I'm happy to address any questions, feedback from council as well. And then subsequent to that, we can formally conclude the public meeting. So the purpose of the public meeting is partially that it's a mandatory requirement under the Development Charges Act. But also it's to solicit feedback from the public and from council on the proposed policies and charges that we've included in the background study. Part of the public test requirement is that the study is released to the public at least 60 days prior to council considering passage of the bylaw. And as I go through the timelines, I'll indicate how we've met that timeline requirement. So we started back in late fall, kind of September 2021, in meetings with municipal staff. We started developing the growth forecast, and working through the policies and calculations, and that occurred through to January of 2022. We released the background study on the municipality's website, and it's made available to the public on February 18th. This evening, we're holding the public meeting, April 6th, and then council is anticipated to consider the bylaw on April 20th. So development charges are used to recover costs for capital that our municipalities are required to construct as a result of growth. And so these costs that we would include in the charge are in addition to what you would, a developer would normally construct as part of their subdivision. So if we think of a typical subdivision, all of the internal streets, the water pipes and the wastewater pipes and the sidewalks, that would be inside that subdivision, the developer would pay for and construct those works. So the development charges are really to capture the infrastructure outside of those subdivisions to connect them to the broader municipal infrastructure. And municipalities are authorized or empowered to impose these charges through the Development Charges Act. So there's about 20 eligible services that municipalities can include in the development charge bylaw. The ones highlighted in orange are the services that we've considered. So water, wastewater, services related to a highway, which is really roads and public works, fire, and parks and recreation services. Additionally, we've created a class of service, which is required under the new rule for studies. And these studies are growth related and related to those eligible services that we've identified above. So since the passage of the 2018 bylaw, there's been a number of changes to the legislation, and I'll just go through at a high level here, what those impacts would be on the municipality. I will note just last week, so it's not incorporated into this bylaw, the province announced further changes to the Planning Act and a minor change to the regulations to the Development Charges Act. So there will be more changes coming. Unfortunately, it's hot off the press, so it's just announced last week. So Watson will be preparing comments and submitting them to the province. However, they're not incorporated into this presentation. So if I just go through these at a high level, so Bill 108 really was the first piece of legislation to change the Development Charges Act. And there was really two main features, two main things that came through this legislative change. The first is the timing of payment. So generally, developers will pay their development charge at the building permit stage. So I go and I'm going to go build my house, got to pull a building permit. Before I get that building permit, I would pay my development charge. What the legislation now includes is the requirement for certain developments to pay an installment payment. So rental housing and institutional developments, they pay their development charge in 6 equal installments. The first on occupancy or occupancy permit, and then each year thereafter. For nonprofit housing, it's actually over 20 years or 21 installments. Now, you do have the ability to impose interest on those installment payments. And I know the municipality is considering an interest rate policy to be brought forth separate from the development charge background study. The other component to Bill 108 is any development coming with a site plan application or a zoning bylaw amendment application. When they submit their application, the development charge at the time is frozen. So they'll submit their application. The municipality will review the application, and then once the municipality approves the application, the developer has 2 years to start construction on their development, and the rate will stay frozen at whatever it was when they submitted. If they take more than 2 years, the rate at the time, the date they pull their building permit, will be the rate in effect. Bill 197 was then passed in 2020. It made some changes to Bill 108, but ultimately, the key components here that would impact the municipality are the list of eligible services. Now, the previous Development Charges Act, it just said you could collect for growth-related infrastructure, except for a certain number of items and services, town hall, etc. Now what they've done is kind of reversed that, and they've listed out the services. For the municipality, it doesn't impact what services you could collect for, as the current bylaw only includes charges for water, wastewater, roads, and stormwater. There used to be a requirement for a 10% deduction on certain services, so Parks and Rec, library. You would do the calculation, you get all the way to the end, and then you'd have to take an additional 10% off the calculations, and that would have to be funded by the municipality. That has been removed, so that's no longer required. And then Bill 197 brought in the legislation or the changes to the Planning Act to allow for community benefit charges. These are not considered as part of this analysis, but just so that it's noted here, they're only imposed on higher density development, so development that's 5 stories or greater and that has 10 residential units or more. Okay. So the development charge methodology is summarized here. There's something like 60 or 70 clauses in the Act, and there's years of case law through the municipal board, which guides how we establish policy and calculate the charges. But at a high level, what we need to do is we need to identify the amount, type, and location of development. So, what type of development, where is it in the municipality? And then we need to identify the servicing needs to accommodate that growth. So, for example, let's say we know we have a certain number of people coming, so we need recreation services. So that's that level. Item number 3 then is, okay, we know we need recreation services. Well, what are the actual projects that we're going to need to construct to accommodate that? Okay, and so we'll go through, in the background study, we've listed all the capital projects that we've identified. And then once we know how much those capital costs are, we need to make some deductions. So if the municipality is going to receive any grants, subsidies, or other contributions, any share that benefits existing residents, anything in excess of this historical service level calculation we have to do. And then we also give consideration to any balances in DC reserve funds. From there, we then take the cost that's growth related and we allocate it between residential and non-residential benefit. And then we divide it by the residential and non-residential growth. So very simply, and with pictures this time, it's the total cost that we need to recover and divided by the growth. And so what we end up with is a development charge per unit for residential development and a development charge per square foot of floor space for non-residential development. The Development Charges Act provides for a number of mandatory exemptions that you have to provide for development. So if I own an industrial building, I can expand that building up 50% and I don't have to pay a DC. For residential, And this applies to existing homes as well as new homes. I can add up to 2 apartments in a single detached home, as long as I don't double the size of the home. And I can add an additional unit in a townhouse or an apartment. There's an exemption for upper and lower tier government boards. So if the county were to impose a development charge, for example, and you were to build a facility, they wouldn't charge you DC and vice versa. And then lastly, and this is one of the changes to the legislation, universities are also exempt. And then the Act also allows council and the municipalities to impose or to provide for some discretionary exemption. So if you want to reduce the charge at all for any certain class or type of development, you can do that through the bylaw. You can phase in charge over time, and you can provide redevelopment credits. So if I have a single detached house and I want to knock it down and put 3 townhouses, I get a credit for that single detached house. Currently, the only exemption in the 2018 bylaw is for vacant lots that have already paid a capital charge for sanitary service. So this diagram just kind of highlights the funding sources and the importance of development charges. So if you have new development coming to the municipality, you have capital needs. So you need to build, parks and recreation uses and water and wastewater infrastructure. And the money to pay for that infrastructure has to come from somewhere. So on the left, it could come from development charges to the extent that it's related to growth. And whatever is not funded from development charges would then be funded from your water rates or wastewater rates, taxes, or existing reserves. Okay. So the growth we are looking at in the municipality, we've identified over 10 and 20-year periods. So the 10 and 20 year relate to the entire municipality. And then the last 2 columns identify Park Hill and Elsa Craig and Nairn separately. So for the 20-year population for the entire municipality, we're looking at a net increase of about 1,128 people, 769 units for residential, and 357,000 square feet of non-residential floor space. For Park Hill, we're looking at 782 people, just under 400 residential units, and about 83,000 square feet floor space. And then Elsa Craig and Nairn, 487 people, 284 units, and just under 44,000 square feet of floor space. So as I mentioned earlier, the services we're considering as part of this background study and bylaw are services related to highway, fire, and parks and recreation services, and they would be applied on a municipal-wide basis, along with growth studies. And then water and wastewater services have been considered on an urban area, just for those that, for the works that relate to those urban areas. So the current charges are provided on an area-specific basis. So Elsa Craig, Nairn, and Petty area, the calculated charges were $12,500 for a single detached unit, and $1.72 per square foot for non-residential. Council at the time instituted a 50% reduction, so we just wanted to show the calculated rates and the 50% reduction. And so the reduced rates are $6,225 for single and 86 cents per square foot for non-residential. Similarly, in Park Hill, the current rates are $6,342 for single, 87 cents for per square foot for non-resident. So when we looked at the proposed charges, we worked with staff to develop the capital plans, especially for water and wastewater. And hearing feedback from council through the water and wastewater rate study process, we looked at the calculations for the DCs on two different ways. So if we continue the approach for water and wastewater to have different charge for Park Hill versus Elsa Craig in there, or what if we combine them into one urban area and had one urban serviced area charge? And so there's a lot of numbers on this table, and I'm not going to go through all of them. But if we just focus on the bottom, we have for a single and semi-detached dwelling, if we calculate them separately, Park Hill would be about $20,357 per unit. Elsa Craig and Aaron, just under $16,400 per unit. For the different types of units, we apply different persons per unit assumptions. So as we go across for the residential units, you'll see they get lower and lower. For non-residential, what we did is you'll notice the municipal-wide charges are all the same for these two categories. And most of the charges are the same except for wastewater treatment. So we've identified kind of the typical non-residential development versus a large wastewater user type development. So for the typical non-residential development, the charges would be $9.08 per square foot in Park Hill and $7.74 per square foot in Elsa Craig in there. And if we combine the two urban areas, the single and semi-detached dwelling total urban area charge would be $19,187, and the commercial typical non-res user would be $8.77. Again, there's a lot of numbers here, so I'll try to give you the overall impact here. So if we look at the current urban area charge, the full all-in charge is $6,225 for Elsa Craig and there. The full charge without the discounts about $12,500, and the calculated amount would be $16,400. So an increase of about $4,000 per unit. And if we went to the combined urban area, it would go up to $19,000 per unit. When we look at Park Hill, similarly, the full calculated current charge would be $12,700 per square foot, or sorry, $12,700 per unit. The calculated charge is up to $20,357 per unit. And if we did it on the combined basis, it'd be $19,000. For the non-residential, for the typical kind of non-residential development, the charges would go from the fully calculated $1.71 up to a calculated amount of $7.74 per square foot, and on a combined basis, $8.77. Oops, sorry. Gotta wait for the menu to display. It's covering the numbers. For Park Hill, the current full charges are $1.59 per square foot, calculated to be now $9.08, or $8.77 per square foot on a combined basis. Okay, so graphically, we compare these charges to some of your neighbors and some other municipalities. These burgundy arrows at the far right are your current charges. As you can see, they're significantly lower than most other municipalities. And it's probably hard to see on the screen, but there's a darker green arrows are the proposed charges for the separate urban area, and then the lighter blue arrow is for the combined And you'll see even with the combined or the separated urban area charges, we're still around the $20,000 per single detached range. It's around the middle of the pack of the survey. For non-residential, the kind of typical commercial development, again, your current charges are down at the end on the right side, and based on the calculated charges, we'd be up, just under 10 center. Well, it would be significant, like about $5 under what 10 center rates are, but slightly higher than Mapleton, and just around Middlesex center charges. And then similarly for industrial, same idea where your current rates are at the far right, and then the calculated rates will bring you to about the middle of the survey. So subsequent to this, I'm happy to hear from the public and then answer any questions from council. And then once this meeting is concluded, council consideration of the bylaw passage would be the next step. So thank you for listening, and pass it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Daryl. At this time, I would ask any comments from the public. No comments from the public. We do have provision for written submissions. Is there any written submissions on this? No written submissions? Okay. So provision for council questions. Question, Deputy Mayor Canelson.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I do have a couple of questions, if I may. Can I speak directly to our presenter?
Daryl, can I confirm that you can hear us?
It's a little quiet. I will turn on my volume.
Turn your volume back on and I'll mute you over here. And then I'll bring you back on. So we'll have to do back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, I can just mute on here. That's cool.
My apologies, everybody. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Daryl, can you hear me now?
You can.
Yep.
Okay, good. Daryl, I have a question on the last graph you showed for our neighboring communities. And I was interested to know what the comparison would be, say, with Southwest Middlesex and Lucan-Bidulph versus our proposed development charges. Did you do any comparisons in those with those communities?
Go ahead, Daryl.
We did not. We stayed consistent with the survey from the previous background study, but we more than happy to take a look and provide that to council subsequently.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting to see.
Okay.
What were through the deputy mayor? What were the development charges you received looking for?
Southwest and Lucan.
So currently Southwest, I did not get that information, but Lucan is currently for urban just under $7,000 and rural is $2,000. Middlesex Center was on the graph. Lambton Shores is 13,000 urban and 6,000 for rural. Strathroy is about 6,000 rural, urban is 12,000, and Mount Bridges is an outliner as 17,000 to 19,000. And the last one I did was the South Huron, which was rural, was about 3,000, and urban was about 5,000.
So we would be a little higher than those communities.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. The other question I have for Daryl as well is when you spoke about additional units, residential units on existing properties, there has been a trend and there may be some consideration towards establishing coach houses or tiny homes in the backyards. Would there be a development charge applied to those type of construction units?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, based on the legislative changes, coach houses would most likely be exempt. As there's a provision in the legislation now that says if a dwelling unit is in an ancillary residential building, it would also count towards being exempt. And so a coach house is really an ancillary building to the main principal use. Where there is a gray area is the tiny homes. because tiny homes have, all of the services that a normal home has generally. However, the way the legislation is currently drafted, those can be exempt based on the bylaw. There's some discretion with the municipality to take a look at that in further detail. But based on the draft bylaw, the way that it's written, they would be exempt.
Thank you. I have one final question and then I'll give up to my fellow councilors. When doing the development charges for the communities on a separate basis, Else Craig Nairn and Park Hill separately, there's a discrepancy of about $4,000 between the two communities. How did that come by? How did we come to that number, to that difference?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be based on the capital needs that were identified. Versus the growth that's anticipated in those communities. So Chapter 5 of the background study will identify all the capital needs for each of those different areas. And I know that there is a wastewater treatment plant for Park Hill that's included in the cost, which is most likely significantly higher than a lot of the capital costs required for the Elsa Craig and Nairn area. One thing I will add is, through a lot of the capital needs that were identified and the growth that was identified as well, is based on works that the municipality has done with association with some of their engineering consultants. So we've taken, engineering memos as well as discussions with staff to come up with these capital cost estimates.
Thank you so much.
Other questions from council? Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Daryl, I just have maybe a little bit of clarification. When we are speaking of tiny homes, does that include the garden homes and granny suites?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, garden homes, there's a kind of a different delineation between tiny homes and garden homes and granny suites. Garden homes and granny suites kind of would be those ancillary buildings, so they would be exempt. When referring to tiny homes, there's this trend where these new homes basically have all of the amenities a normal house has: kitchen. These granny suites or garden homes might have those as well, but we would think that those would most likely be exempt under the rules.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Hemming?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Rob. I don't know if this is for their presenter but to allow a tiny home or whatever in their backyards anyways, you would have to have municipal bylaws in place to allow that, right? And do we have that at this time?
Through your worship to Councillor Hemming, is this in regards to a dual use or a complete tear down and rebuild?
Yeah, but were we not discussing if you had a house in town, then you're going to put one in the backyard, like that would be like a whole new.
I think we'd have to look into that a little bit further, Daryl. Correct me if I'm wrong, considering the legislation that's around the corner, especially with the announcement that just came through this week. But I would imagine it would be a proportionate benefit related to the lot as a whole, because there is an existing use there already.
Yeah, that's what.
But we would have to look. We'd have to look into it further.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? I have one, Daryl, and I believe was when you talked about what was all factored into the rates, stormwater was omitted, and I'm just wondering the rationale to that.
Through your worship, that was more of a decision when we were going through the analysis. The development that's incurring now is the large scale development will be implementing stormwater management measures as it relates. The other thing is we don't have a governing document for a stormwater master plan to leverage said costing yet. The study has been identified through the development charges as a contribution, and most likely in the next revision in 5 years, it would include provisions related to stormwater management.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from council? No other questions? This time, we will close the public meeting. And of course, the next step is to consider a bylaw passage on April 20th. We're just taking this for information at this time tonight. And so we'll just go from there. I should also mention on roll call, I did omit the fact that Councillor Moyer and Councillor Nickel do send their regrets. Both are feeling ill tonight. Our next item is public meeting is notice to consider application ZBA-5-2022 at 27650 New Ontario Road. And that is for applicant 1050029 Ontario Inc. That's Paul Mahan and Jessica Busher. And if the applicant would like to come forward, if the applicant here for that. We have no one here at this time. So we would have, we'll turn it over to Stephanie.
Can anyone hear me? If we're good with my mic on?
Yeah, you take your mask off.
Just
All right, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. All right, the purpose and effect of the temporary use zoning bylaw amendment application is to allow the establishment of a 52 square meter or 560 square foot granny flat or garden suite on an agricultural parcel of land for a period of 3 years. The subject lands has an area of approximately 100 acres and contains a single detached dwelling, a silo, chicken coops, an accessory building, and agricultural land and crop production. The lands are serviced by a private well and a private septic system and have an existing access off of New Ontario Road. The structure is proposed to be located at the side yard of the subject lands, approximately 20 meters or 66 feet from the west side of the existing single detached dwelling. The structure is proposed to tie into the existing septic system and well. And access to the structure is proposed to be from the existing driveway that services the single detached dwelling off of New Ontario Road. And I should also mention it is highlighted on red. There's a little red box on your screen in front of you. The provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and the North Middlesex official plan all encourage mixed forms of housing in order to accommodate a wide range of people, such as granny flats, which are typically used to house additional family members. The North Middlesex official plan states that a granny flat shall be permitted by way of a temporary use zoning bylaw. The North Middlesex official plan further sets out regulations required in order to facilitate a granny flat, including limiting the amount of granny flats to 1 per property. It also requires the building to be accessory to the main use of the property. Staff are satisfied that the existing granny flat is accessory in nature as it is subordinate in ground floor area in comparison to the existing dwelling, and that there is in fact only proposed 1 structure on the lands. Staff are the opinion that the proposed concept provided for the dwelling unit is appropriate in terms of scale and do not anticipate any negative impacts to adjacent properties as a result of the location of the granny flat. Staff have reviewed the existing location of the granny flat and are satisfied that the zoning requirements of section 7.3.1, being the general agricultural zone, are being maintained. Overall, staff are in the opinion that the proposed temporary use zoning bylaw amendment to permit a granny flat on an agricultural parcel of land for housing a family member is consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with the county and North Middlesex official plans and North Middlesex zoning bylaw. Notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. Essable Bayfield Conservation Authority noted that from information submitted, it appears that the proposed development is not within the regulated area or within significant natural heritage features. And as such, the authority does not have a natural hazard or natural heritage concern with the requested application. The North Middlesex Chief Building Official has no objections to the application. However, noted that it will be determined at the building permit stage if the new proposed granny flat may be connected to the existing sewage system. The North Middlesex Public Works Department did note that there is water fronting the subject lands and that the subject lands are not currently fed via the North Middlesex distribution system. In order to facilitate the addition of a granny flat, the municipality requires that the applicant install a water service to both the current and additional residential dwelling, and costs associated with the new water service will be at the sole cost of the applicant. In regards to roads, there is an existing access as previously mentioned, and if any new accesses were to be proposed in the future, that would be subject to costs and fees by the applicant. At the time of writing the subject report, no other comments had been received from agencies or members of the public. However, subsequent to writing the report, the applicants did provide a supplementary letter to accommodate their application, which has been attached to the agenda for council's viewing. And I don't believe we have the applicants with us this evening, so I can certainly speak to that when we get to the written submissions portion of the evening. So it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. So we have, the next is for the applicant's remarks. Would you, and written submissions, would you like to address that now then, please?
Certainly, yes. All right, so I am going to read out the letter that was provided by the applicants who were unable to attend this evening. I wish to comment on the application for the temporary use zoning bylaw amendment for the subject property. Along with my husband, Paul Mahon, I am the owner of the property. The purpose of this application is to be allowed to build a garden suite for our adult son, Philip Mahon. Philip is 30 years old, autistic and nonverbal, and currently lives in a rental house with his full-time PSW, Jim Lambert. Philip enjoys his perceived independence and spends much of his time cooking, baking, and maintaining a garden and chickens at his parents' farm. Some of you may know Philip for his previously decorated apartment in Park Hill, or more recently, his contributions to the Elsa Craig Food Bank. For the past several years, Philip and Jim have donated much produce and have sold baked goods to select clientele to raise money for the food bank. This is Philip's job. We were notified that Philip's rental house will be sold at the end of the summer. The conditions that make this an excellent seller's market are the same conditions that make it nearly impossible to purchase a small house for our son, who would not thrive if he had to move back into his own room in our house. In the past, we did put him on a wait list for a group home, but there were approximately 800 clients ahead of him on that list, and families in crisis get moved to the head of the line. In any case, Philip has found his niche in this community, and we would very much like for him to be able to continue his involvement. Having our son live in his own separate garden suite will enable him to continue a sense of independence, yet live in an environment that has been designed to keep him safe, provide an arm's length supervision, keep him close to his birds and garden, and interact with his family, but still be able to go home to his own place at will. We understand that this is a temporary dwelling for a period of 3 years. Like the rest of our community, we don't know what the next 3 years holds, but we'll continue to look for affordable housing for Philip for the future. In the meantime, our son needs a place to call his own and decorate. I would respectfully request that Council of North Middlesex approve our application to construct a garden suite for Philip at 27650 New Ontario Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. At this time, I would ask any comments from the public in this application. Seeing none, council, questions from council? Deputy Mayor Canelson.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I think this is a prime example and a very good example of the purpose of having garden suites and granny flats in the people's backyards. I do have a question for our infrastructure manager, if I may. And I noticed here that they mentioned the fact that the two units will have to be connected to the North Middlesex water system. Will they have to make two connections or share one?
It'll be one single connection.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And another question for the planner, if I may. Now, this is for a period of 3 years. In the event that they require this residence for a longer period of time, could that be accommodated?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes. So with any temporary use application, there is the ability to apply to renew that temporary use at the expiry date.
Could they apply for a longer period of time, say a 20-year temporary use?
So through the mayor to the councillor, currently our official plan has criteria that it is a maximum of 3 years. However, the Planning Act does specifically allow for a 20-year period. So currently under our existing policies, 3 years is the maximum. However, I think this is something that we will be looking amongst a lot of other topics of housing generally when we go through our official plan exercise late this year.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? Seeing no other questions, we have a recommendation in front of us to approve that application. Moved by Councillor Keogh, seconded by Councillor Hemming. All in favor? Carried. Okay, our next is a notice of public meeting to consider application ZUA 06-2022 3722 Wardle Drive. And it's Marlene Frank is the applicant. If you want to come up, Marlene. Oh. We won't throw anything if you don't. How are you? All right, Stephanie, if you'd like to begin.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. All right, so the purpose and effect of this temporary use zoning bylaw amendment application is to continue to allow a 93.27 square meter or about 1,004 square foot granny flat or garden suite on an agricultural parcel of land for a period of not exceeding 3 years. And this application is actually a renewal of a previous temporary use application, which was granted by council on May 8th, 2019. The subject lands has an area of approximately 100 acres and contains a single detached dwelling, a granny flat, a barn, and agricultural land in crop production. The lands are serviced by a well and a private septic system and have an existing access off Wardell Drive. As mentioned, the existing granny flat is about 1,004 square feet in size and is located northwest of the single detached dwelling in the rear yard, and it can be seen again in the red rectangle. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. The red rectangle on your screen in front of you. With the exception of the use of the structure itself, the size and location of the granny flat is in compliance with the zoning regulations. The granny flat contains a bedroom, kitchen, and a bathroom and is connected to private septic system and the water connection. Staff have reviewed the policy documents and are of the opinion that the proposal to permit the continuation of a granny flat on the subject lands is considered to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with the county and North Middlesex official plans. The notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. Essable Bayfield Conservation Authority does not have a concern with the requested temporary use zoning bylaw amendment. The North Middlesex Chief Building Official has no objection. The North Middlesex Public Works Department has no comments, and no other comments or concerns had been received at the time of reading the subject report from members of the public. So it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Is there anything that you would like to add to the report?
Works well for us. Neighbors next door will take care of them every once in a while, then the kids take care of us every once in a while.
I think this is an example of what you were just talking about, Deputy Mayor, about the 3 year. Okay, we have no written submissions on this. And public comments from public? Seeing none, comments from council, questions from council? We have a recommendation to approve this. Councillor Keogh, Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, maybe when the official plan gets changed, we can, they'll be looking at adjusting that. At the time, we're going into Committee of Adjustment, and that is a public meeting to consider application B6-2022 located at 4084 West Corner Drive. The owner is Harvey Ross and the applicant Stephen Ross, sorry, and the agent Jason O'Neill. So if you want to come up here to the table, I didn't recognize you, Steve. You have that extra. Yeah, the extra beer.
You guys might bring on that. And you can just grab it.
All right, Stephanie, if you'd like to begin.
Thank you. All right, so the purpose and effect of the consent application is to sever a parcel of land consisting of approximately 100 acres of land from an existing farm parcel consisting of approximately 300 acres of land, known municipally as 4084, West Corner Drive. The proposed land severance would correct a legal merger of parcels which occurred due to common ownership. The applicant is seeking consent approval to sever a farm parcel representing an original township lot, again, to correct a merger. And so it is highlighted in green, the most east corner of the lands in front of you. The land to be severed contains agricultural land and crop production and is vacant of any buildings or structures and is unserviced. As part of the conditions of consent, an access will need to be verified or a new entrance will need to be established for the lands to be severed. The lands to be retained contains a single detached dwelling, 2 accessory buildings, and include agricultural land and crop production. The lands are serviced by a municipal water connection and a private septic system and have an existing access off of West Corner Drive. The provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and the North Middlesex official plan generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas for agricultural purposes, where the lots are of a size sufficiently large to maintain productive and viable farm units. The minimum lot size requirement, as outlined in both the county and North Middlesex official plan, is 39 hectares or about 100 acres in size. The size of the proposed lands to be severed and the lands to be retained appear to meet the minimum lot area and frontage criteria of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Staff are satisfied that the size and configuration of the proposed lots will not negatively impact the ability to farm the lands, and the flexibility to adapt to future farming practices will not be compromised. Overall, staff are in a position to support the proposed consent application, as it will result in parcels that meet or exceed the minimum standards set out in the policy documents. And no change of use is being proposed at this point in time. Notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. North Middlesex Chief Building Official has no objection. Enbridge Gas did note that there may be service lines within the area which may or may not be impacted by the severance. Should any works need to be done, there is direction to contact Enbridge directly. Essable Bayfield Conservation Authority does not have any natural hazard or natural heritage concerns from the requested severance of farmland. And the North Middlesex Public Works Department did note that there is water fronting the subject lands and that the existing house is currently fed from a municipal connection, and any future additions or additional hookups to the water line is subject to the fees of the municipality. In regards to roads, similarly, there is an existing access off West Corner Drive, and any additional entrances would be subject to fees. In regards to drainage, the retained and severed lands are assessed to the McLean Drain Branch, and due to the severance, the drain would need to be reapportioned as a condition of the application. And at the time of writing the subject report, no comments were received from the public. So it is recommended that the application be granted, subject to the conditions that council will have before them. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. At this time, the applicant have remarks or comments?
I'd like to start by thanking the planner for a thorough report. The only comment we have is that condition 4 should be a moot point as there is already an existing suitable access located off of Cassidy Road, which will be suitable. Do you have anything else?
No? Okay. At this time, any comments from public? Seeing none? Comments from the committee? Questions? Deputy Mayor Nelson?
Thank you. My question is for Stephanie. Stephanie, what happens quite often is that when a landowner acquires additional property adjacent to the property that they currently own, it is merged into one property if it's not registered carefully. Now, is that a policy, a county policy, a provincial policy?
Through the mayor to the councillor, that yes, that's more of a legal technicality, I would say, than a direct policy within the planning realm.
Okay, well, it's just that these properties have long been surveyed as separate entities, but when they're purchased by an adjoining landowner, it's merged into one property, and then there's costs associated with, in this case, severing that property off. So I guess I know that the landowners have to be careful how they register that property, but is there any intent to alter that policy?
So yes, there are some current changes coming forward from the province in regards to inadvertent mergers, but it only applies to, there is an exemption for when there is a death of a spouse is the only instance.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We have a recommendation to approve the application.
Mayor.
Councillor Keo. Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
just want clarification for the applicant. So you mentioned condition number 4 that you were questioning. I just didn't know whether you got a response to that question. Did you?
No. Through your worship, I would leave the condition in and leave it up to the subject of inspection for staff to look into further.
Okay. I just wanted for the clarification of the applicant. I just wanted to make sure that he was.
It could be
he
very
had an
well
answer
suitable.
to.
We just have to confirm with you. Okay.
Okay. We had it moved by Councillor Keo, seconded by Councillor Hammond. In favor? Carried. We do have one more item, and that is the one more planning application, I should say, and that is B7 2022, located at 35019 Lurie Road, and it's Carlin and Pollock. Good evening. Okay, Stephanie.
Thank you. All right, the purpose for the application of consent is to sever a surplus farm residence on a lot with a frontage of approximately 90 meters or 295 feet along Lurie Road in an area of approximately 0.72 hectares or 1.78 acres from a farm parcel with a total area of approximately 20.23 hectares or 50 acres. The lands to be severed contains a single detached dwelling, a barn, a shed, and are serviced by a municipal water connection and a private septic system. The lands to be retained contain agricultural land and crop production and are unserviced. As part of the conditions of consent, an existing access will need to be verified or a new entrance will need to be established for the lands to be severed. A concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application has also been filed in order to rezone the severed lands to the agricultural small holding AG1 zone. And that's in order to recognize the residential use of the lands and limit permitted uses. The rezoning application also proposes to rezone the retained parcel to the general agricultural exception zone. And that's in order to prohibit residential uses as per the North Middlesex official plan. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and the municipality's official plan generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas to dispose of a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation, subject to evaluation criteria. Staff are satisfied that a farm consolidation will be achieved and that the residents may be deemed surplus to the needs of the farming operation as a result of farm consolidation. The applicants have provided supplementary information that demonstrates ownership of a number of farm holdings containing at least one additional dwelling, and impact data indicates that the existing dwelling was constructed around the early 1900s. The North Middlesex official plan indicates that the severed parcel should generally only be as large as necessary to accommodate on-site water and sanitary disposal facilities, and should generally be a maximum of 1 hectare or 2.5 acres in size. Staff note that the area of lands proposed to be severed are 0.72 hectares or 1.78 acres, remaining consistent with the maximum size of 1 hectare or 2.5 acres. Staff are of the opinion that the severed lot is an appropriate size to contain the dwelling and the services. In reviewing the sketch provided by the applicant, staff identified that the existing barn on the lands has a height of 10.7 meters, whereas the maximum height for accessory buildings is 5.5 meters. And as such, staff recommend that the lands to be rezoned to a agricultural small holding exception zone in order to recognize the accessory building height deficiency. And all other zoning standards of the AG1 zone appear to be met. In regards to the retained lands, staff recommend that a the existing proposed site specific zoning also recognize the undersized agricultural parcel of 19.51 hectares or 48.22 acres, whereas the minimum permitted is 39 hectares or 100 acres, as well as the deficient frontage of 112.34 meters or 368.5 feet, whereas the minimum frontage permitted in the general agricultural zone is 150 meters or 292 feet. And all other criteria of the general agricultural A1 zone appear to be met. Notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. The North Middlesex Chief Building Official did note that the old bank barn be requested that the old bank barn be evaluated by a structural engineer and that it be declared to be structurally sound and any animal housing and or pens be removed, and that a change of use permit be required to document this building no longer being permitted to house poultry or livestock. The Essable Bayfield Conservation Authority said that from the information submitted, it appears the heritage area is not being fragmented and will be contained on the retained portion of the parcel. The retained and severed parcels are not regulated by the Conservation Authority, and as such, ABCA does not have a natural hazard or natural heritage concern with the requested severance and subsequent rezoning application. The North Middlesex Public Works Department, subsequent to an additional review, did note that there is an existing water connection on the subject lands. In regards to roads, there is an existing access off of Wary Road, and any additional access is required would be subject to fees. In regards to drainage, the lands are assessed to a municipal drain, the Glen Dinning drain. Thank you. There's a lot of N's in there. And due to the proposed severance, a drainage reassessment will be required as a condition of the application. So it is recommended that the application be granted subject to the conditions before you. But staff do recommend that in light of confirmation that there is an existing water connection, that condition number 7 be omitted from the decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. At this time, the applicant have any comments, things you'd like to say?
There's a laneway off that road where the field has been used for 20 years, previous renters used it, so it's a gravel.
That should be an easy one to meet then, yes. Okay.
And the pond itself has not had livestock or anything in it. It was actually used for storage. The previous owner was an electrician and he used it for storage, and there is no penning or anything. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Fire and board scale down, roof scales, structure.
Okay,
And there's no water and or hydro to that, or to the barn.
okay. All right. Thank you. We have no written submissions to this. Comments at this time from public on this application? Seeing none. Comments from council? No comments? You have a recommendation to approve? Moved by Councilor McClinchy, seconded by Councilor Hemming. In favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. At this time, we would adjourn our meeting, Committee of Adjustment, and then go into regular council meeting. Need a mover? Deputy Mayor Canellison, Councilor Keough, all in favor? Carried. We have a plan, our next is our planner's report. That's the Essable Bluff subdivision. And I believe Stephanie, you're going to present it, but Jason and Mike, I think are both here. If you can come up, that'd be great. So we do have for the public is Jason Johnson is the agent and Mike Ratcliffe is the developer. Good evening, gentlemen. Stephanie, go ahead.
Thank you. And I will share my screen for council's benefit. All right, so the purpose and effect of the proposed draft plan of subdivision is to create 250 single detached dwellings and 2 medium density blocks for future development purposes. And the proposed accesses are from the extension of Hamilton Street. I'm not sure you can see my cursor very well. On the left-hand side of the screen, Atkinson Street and Mary Street down here. The applicants have also submitted concurrently a rezoning application, which proposes to rezone the single detached dwellings, which are lots 1 to 250, from the future development zone to the residential density 1 exception zone. And the site-specific requirements that we're seeking permission for is a minimum lot area of 400 square meters, a minimum lot frontage of 12 meters, a maximum lot coverage of 55%, and a maximum gross floor area as a percent of lot area of 50%. Additionally, the rezoning application proposes to rezone the 2 medium density blocks, which are shown labeled as townhouse block on the screen in front of you. One on the left-hand side, you can see it in pink and orange, and one on the right-hand side. Again, from the future development zone to a site-specific residential density 2 zone. And they are seeking special zoning provisions for a minimum lot area of 180 square meters, an interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters, and a maximum lot coverage of 55%. Additionally, there is the final component of the rezoning application is to rezone the parquet, which is highlighted. I'm trying to circle it with my cursor in front of you. From the future development zone to the Parks and Recreation PR zone, and that's for public amenity space. In regards to public consultation, there was a public open house hosted by Dylan on July 27th, 2021, and approximately 5 members of the public attended the meeting. Questions and concerns raised included, but not limited to, construction and phasing of the development, what types of dwellings are to be expected, single story versus multi-story, and the ownership of the units, rental versus freehold. The statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act was held on September 1st, 2021, and there were no members of the public in attendance of the public meeting. However, staff did receive 4 written submissions as part of the circulation process. The comments received expressed general concern with regards to land use compatibility between the proposed medium density block and Craigwell Gardens, increased traffic, and an impact on an environmental feature. And staff did provide a response that I will share with you this evening. So in regards to the placement of the townhouse dwelling in close proximity to the abutting senior living establishment, staff are of the opinion that the proposed medium density block is compatible with surrounding uses, including Cragwell Gardens, as the uses are both residential in nature. Staff have recommended as part of the rezoning application that minimum landscaping requirements be established along all lot lines abutting residential density 1, so the lower residential abutting the single detached family dwellings, as well as the residential care facility zone, which would be on the most left-hand side abutting Cragwell. In regards to increased traffic as a result of the proposed development, a traffic impact brief has been submitted as part of the submission materials for the plan of subdivision application and has been included on the agenda for council's viewing. Again, it was included in the September meeting as well. But the brief provides an estimated traffic counts as a result of the development and does not anticipate the need for any major road improvements. And additionally, the recommended draft plan conditions include the need for road intersection engineering and design analysis. A concern was received in regards to the impacts development may have on a water course that was located on an abutting property. And the recommended draft plan conditions includes the requirement for a stormwater management plan, as well as a sediment and erosion plan to be reviewed in consultation with the Essable Bayfield Conservation Authority. Staff did receive agency comments that have been included in the report through the 2021 circulation, so I will not read them again this evening. However, subsequent to our September 21st meeting, staff did receive some additional comments that have not yet been they're newer, so I will speak to them. One was from the County of Middlesex engineer, who just noted that turning lanes may be required to be painted and integration of the intersections with the cycling lanes will need to be further examined. Additionally, the Thames Valley District School Board did say no concerns at this time. So it is noted that no changes of the proposed draft plan occurred as a result of the public consultation process. Dillon Consulting did, however, provide a response letter to the comments received, which again has been attached on the agenda for council's reading. Generally, the concerns raised by the public can be addressed through the planning process, and the comments received from the agencies can be addressed within the draft plan conditions and ultimately within the subdivision agreement. The provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, and the North Middlesex official plan all encourage development within settlement area boundaries on full municipal services. The subject lands are located within the settlement area of Elsa Craig and will be fully serviced with municipal infrastructure. The lands are designated residential within the North Middlesex official plan and are zoned future development within the North Middlesex zoning bylaw and are generally intended for residential development. Staff are of the opinion that the development is proposed to be located adjacent to existing built-up areas, has a compact form, mixed use and densities that allow for an efficient use of land. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed development will maintain the character of Elsa Craig, being predominantly single detached dwellings, as well as provide medium density forms of housing, adding to the diversity of housing options to the community. The proposed development is designed in a manner that will be considered an efficient use of the land and provides connectivity to the existing abutting residential neighborhood. The proposed development contains a parkette, as mentioned, as well as a pedestrian walkway, which will be, it's highlighted under the townhouse block in green, and it kind of connects right to the parkette underneath to the existing community on the left-hand side there. The policy documents do encourage municipalities to have a variety of housing types in order to accommodate housing needs of current and future residents. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal both maintains the existing character of the settlement area of Elsa Craig, while also providing a limited range of housing options, being single detached and multifamily. Staff have reviewed the residential density and locational requirements of the North Middlesex official plan and are of the opinion that the proposal maintains the maximum density requirements for low density, which is 25 dwelling units per gross hectare, as well as the medium density requirements of 40 dwelling units per gross hectare. Further evaluation of the medium density blocks in regards to height and character will be completed as part of the subsequent Planning Act applications. However, staff have recommended that the density requirements as well as buffering be recognized through the site-specific zoning in order to ensure official plan conformity. So in regards to the rezoning application, staff are of the opinion that the requested site-specific provisions for the single detached dwellings will result in some lots that are narrower in appearance and contain less landscaped open space in comparison to existing lots in Elsa Craig. However, maintain an appropriate level of density and contribute to a diverse housing stock as per the official plan direction. As part of the rezoning, staff recommends that a maximum driveway width of 6 meters be required, given the reduced frontages in order to ensure that there is enough space between two abutting driveways to accommodate on-street parking for vehicles. In regards to the proposed R2 zoning for the townhouse block, staff do recommend that a minimum landscaping requirement of a strip of not less than 1 meters wide, consisting of continuous unpierced hedgerow of evergreens and shrubs, not less than 1.2 meters high at the time of planting, be required along all lot lines abutting the residential R1 zone, as well as the residential care facilities RS zone, in order to maintain conformity with the buffering requirements for medium density development within the North Middlesex official plan. Additionally, staff recommend that the maximum density of 40 units per hectare be implemented through site-specific zoning as well, to ensure conformity with the official plan. Staff have reviewed the concept plan provided for the medium density blocks and are satisfied that the requested site-specific zoning will result in appropriate residential lots. It is, however, noted that revisions to the concept plan can be anticipated through, again, subsequent Planning Act application, and further examination of policy conformity will occur at that time. As part of the rezoning application, staff recommend that a holding provision apply to the lands as a whole, which requires the completion of a subdivision/development agreement prior to the removal of the holding provision, and that's to ensure proper and orderly development. So based on the above analysis, staff are in a position to recommend support for the proposed draft plan and rezoning applications, as the proposal is considered to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with the County of Middlesex and North Middlesex official plans and zoning bylaw. So it is recommended that the plan of subdivision application and draft plan conditions be endorsed and forwarded to the County of Middlesex for their consideration and approval, and that the zoning bylaw amendment application be granted. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. At this time, Jason and Mike, I think you have a presentation that you've put together, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, you have the, yeah, no problem. Yeah, so this will be largely a bit of a repeat at the beginning of Stephanie's thorough report, but the end we're going to show some images that Mike will speak to specifically regarding the types of homes he intends to build or develop in this proposed subdivision. So if you could just go to the first, like the presentation view. No, it's all good. Perfect. Just go to the next slide, John. Yeah, so again, this is the Essable Bluff subdivision in Elsa Craig. It's a proposed development in the southeast area of Elsa Craig. The development includes 250 single-family residential lots and 2 medium-density blocks. The medium-density block in the first phase behind Craigville is intended to be developed in the future with single-floor townhomes. The medium density block in the second phase to the south is intended to be developed is 2-story townhomes. The development includes an internal stormwater management facility as well as a parkette. The stormwater management pond will be fully landscaped and will include a paved multi-use trail around the perimeter, as well as a fully landscaped parkette. The development will be serviced via gravity sewers, sanitary and storm, and so no pumping stations will be required. Yeah, I don't think I really need to go through too much other that Stephanie didn't already touch on, but again, you can see to the north is the medium density block in the first phase, which we're thinking will be single family units. Just to the west of that is a easement that will connect the existing neighborhood off of Hamilton Street to the proposed development. And then the bottom left, the dark blue or light blue is the stormwater management pond. So that will have a perimeter trail around it, and that storm sewer will outlet to the Essable Creek to the west. And then the medium density block on the south, the right side of the page, that will be developed as part of the second phase. And it's at this time, the intention is that those would be 2-story townhomes. And I think if you just click the button one more time, it'll show that, yeah, so the left is what we're considering as phase 1, just for council's information, and the right side would be developed as the second phase. And then I'll just pass it over to Mike to kind of talk about some of the product.
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor. So Jason asked me to give me a few pictures, and that was just a couple days ago, so I didn't get too many. So this, we're just looking at some of our 40-foot product line that we have built, because we have some 40, 45, and 50-foot lots that we're proposing. We have approximately 500 homes that we've built now with our group in different communities. So this is just a small sample of what a 40-foot product line looks like. Next slide. This is just a couple examples of our 50-foot product line. So that's the 50-foot. So that is the 2-story townhouses we're proposing. We're building them currently in Lucan. So that would be a similar product that we're proposing. And that's just the back of them. And that's the 1-floor townhouses we're proposing near Craigwell Gardens. And so I think there's 19 of those proposed. We're also proposing for the townhouses that will have rental options as well as ownership options, whereas the single family homes will essentially all be ownership options. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Yeah. So questions from council? Pardon me. Councilor McClinchy.
I've noticed that the lots are different sizes. So what's the square footage of, so the smaller lots, would the homes be smaller? Like how many square footage are we talking about? Because you're talking about 50, 40.
Yeah,
30.
so on the smaller lots, the 40 foots, 95% of our 40-foot product is 2-story.
Yeah.
So they're built up. They're still a good size home. They're usually 1,500 to 1,800 square foot on a 40-foot lot. It's the 50-foot product that we can actually get to a 2,500 square foot if anyone wants to spend that kind of money, which we're finding not so abundant anymore. So we're finding on our 50-foot products, most people are still doing 1,800 to 2,200 square foot homes, but it allows for a 1-floor house on a 50-foot lot.
Now, is there a basement as well?
Yes.
A full basement?
Yes, that's the plan. Yeah.
So that'd be like almost 3 floors,
Correct.
right? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Canelson.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I'm very pleased to see that you're having medium density and promoting some townhouses. My question for you, though, is while they're less costly, they will be designated as affordable or rent geared income, will they?
They will not be designated that, no.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Hammond?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Rob. So you're not thinking of doing any of those just slab on grade ones, that they're all gonna have basements under them?
We're planning all basements, yes.
Oh, okay, even on your single.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. So that's a lot of homes there. Do you think they'll all be sold? there's a big waiting list a mile long.
Yes, they will all be sold.
That's right.
Not,
Just
not day one, but it'll be a lot of work.
Because there's a lot of homes.
Okay, any other questions? One comment I'll make is, I like the presentation. I've had a lot of questions from people. Are there going to be 1-story or 2-story townhouses? Because I am hearing from people who want to downsize, and some are not young and they want a single story. So that's very good information to have here.
Actually, one more comment.
Yeah.
So the first phase was all single story townhouses. In the second block, we actually have some 1-floor townhouses. They're on the very south side. So we proposed, because those were a little bit deeper lots, so we could do the 1 floors there, and the rest would be 2-story townhouses in the second phase.
So there's some
So there's a
diversity there
mixture
as well. Perfect, thank you. So any other questions from council here? So we have a recommendation in front of us. Moved by Deputy Mayor Ellison, second by Councilor Teo. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to seeing dirt move. Then, but I will call you to complain about the dust, just so you know. Look forward to it. At this time, we are going into 6:45. Public meeting for drainage. Meeting to consider the Van Dale McEwen drain. And with Jonathan Lampman, and we have Mr. Dietrich here as well. And so, Jonathan, you're going to go ahead. You start.
Mayor, members of council, what you have in front of you is the meeting to consider the engineer's report for the Van Dale McEwen Municipal Drain 2022. The recommendation is that council receive and accept the final report for the Van Dale McEwen Municipal Drain 2022 dated March 7th, 2022, prepared by Dietrich Engineering Limited, and that the first sitting of the quarter revision on behalf of the Van Dale McEwen Municipal Drain be scheduled to be held on May 4th, 2022 at 5:45 p.m. Open the floor to any questions.
Did you have a question, Councilman McClintock? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I saw your hand up. Any questions from council? No questions at this time. But we have just an overview, which if you'll give us that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, certainly. Thank you very much, Mayor Rob. Just a very quick overview of this project. We've had some previous, obviously, meetings to get to this point this evening, and if we go back in time, our firm was originally appointed under Section 78 of the Drainage Act. Here, this drainage report as an improvement to an existing drainage system. The original system that it's in place now, it's a tile drainage system. It was constructed under a drainage report back in 1969. We held an on-site meeting back in April of 2021. Preliminary information was sent out to all the landowners on this project back in February. Hearing no concerns, we proceeded and prepared the final drain report, which is in front of you this evening for consideration. And it's dated March the 7th of 2022. There's basically two parts to the project. There's the main drainage systems being upgraded. It serves the drainage area of approximately 460 hectares of land. And we'll be installing a little over two kilometers of 600 millimeter to 900 millimeter pipe. There's 2 road crossings involved on the main drainage system, and one under the county road, and also one under McGuire Road. Also, the existing drain that was put in 69, one of the pipes under the road there needs to be upgraded and replaced as well because of the condition of that pipe. That's all included as part of the improvements to this project. The estimated cost for the work on the main drain closed part of the project is $619,600. This includes the construction costs, allowances, and administration. The other part of the project, Branch A, is being replaced, and it was also constructed back in 69. The new drainage system will be a 300 millimeter tile at the upper end and a 525 millimeter pipe where it connects onto the main drain. And it's a little over 1.2 kilometers of pipe that will be installed with a new road crossing under McGuire. So that's basically the scope of work for this project, and the purpose of this meeting this evening is to consider the technical aspects of the report. And if there is if there's any questions regarding work that's being proposed, I'll be pleased to answer those.
Thank you very much. At this time, from affected landowners, if anyone wants to comment or questions on it. No comments. And I'm supposed to inquire if anyone in attendance would like to add or remove their name from the petition. Seeing none. At this time, any questions from council? No questions? We have a recommended motion in front of us. Moved by Councillor Keel. Seconder, Councillor McClinchy. In favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Delegations, we do have, it's Kathy Wilmsey is coming from the YMCA to do a delegation on the YMCA partnership report. Hi, Kathy, how are you?
I actually had this fix it or figure it out for me so that. And I will just have it on my phone so I can see the world.
Kathy, would you mind putting on your mic?
I sure will.
Thank you.
Okay. So first off, thank you for letting us come and present tonight. Unfortunately, my regional manager, is unwell and unable to attend. So if at any time there is any questions that I am not able to answer for you, I will be happy to provide the information for you with those answers. So I wanted to kind of start off with, do you want me to tell you when to flip forward? You can go ahead. So this is just kind of a general overview for 2021, current year. This is kind of our current and the last half of 2021. As most of you know, just like any other businesses, there was quite a few closures and reopenings last year due to COVID. And, many businesses have seen challenges. So in 2021, one of the things that was introduced was a new membership model that is geared to more types of offerings that members have requested. Instead of a very generalized membership, this is now geared to more specifically as to what you want to use at a facility instead of what was always being offered for everybody. So we've had quite a lot of quite a lot of good comments in regards to the new membership model, that it's fitting more families and more individuals compared to the models that we were using beforehand. We currently have 304 members, which is definitely down from pre-COVID times, but we have hit our, let's see if I can explain, 50% of our pre-COVID numbers. So it's a slow climb back from COVID, definitely, but we have been starting to see an increase of families coming back, members coming back, and new members joining with this new type of membership model that works for them. And I've always had great staff. I work very well with the people that I employ, and they do a lot for the community and the programming, and we have a very good team that helps each other out. So the staff have always felt very engaged in their workplace, and we offer quite a few opportunities for them to develop and grow as well. Member overall satisfaction has continued to stay in the high 80s, low 90s over the last couple of years. So we're pretty proud of that. We do take a very personal relationship with the members that come in and try to engage them when they come in. 2021 summer camps, even with all of the guidelines that we had to have in place in regards to cohorts and our COVID numbers and the extra guidelines that were in place by the health unit, we were able to allow 313 campers throughout the summer. And in that number, there was 10 weeks of camp here in Park Hill, and each week in Park Hill, there was 2 cohorts. So each cohort back in 2021 was 15 kids. So, and then in Elsie Craig, we were able to have, I believe we had 4 weeks of summer camp in 2021, and each one of those cohorts had 15 kids in it. So we were able to offer a lot of opportunities for kids to experience summer camp. And The last little bit there is on financial assistance. So we have found that since we've reopened in COVID times, that the opportunity for financial assistance has increased, and my staff have become more comfortable explaining to community members that come in, families that come in, about the financial assistance available. It still is a struggle, definitely a struggle of getting people to ask, because it's a very hard thing to ask for. So we've just, instead of waiting for it to be asked, we've just always just given the information to them and made it as less intrusive for them to be able to ask for help. So we have found that since this new model has been developed, that the ability to ask for financial assistance seems to be a little bit easier for families and members in the community. These are just a few highlights. I'm not going to go through them all. This is just a few highlights from 2021 that we did throughout the year when we were open. We were closed in, let me just remember this. We were closed in January. We reopened in February till the end of March. And then we had our facility closed from April, May, June, and July, and reopened again in August till the end of 2021. So these programs that have taken place have happened during those times of being closed as well as being opened. So the second last one there, the Y at Home, was created by YMCA of Southwestern Ontario and was offered to members while we were closed and non-members to give them the opportunity to have physical activity at home virtually. So that was created back in, I believe, the closure of beginning of summer, and it was developed and put out there, and we've had great reviews from it, and we continue to use that program. Even in our facility, we still have offerings that if we don't have a current or qualified staff to teach it, we offer some programmings virtually and encourage the participants and the staff to work together to still make it engaging and fun for them, but also getting them up doing something. Those are the operational, those are what we've completed. And I'm going to just look at mine because for some reason that seems a little hard for me to read. So those were just the three areas that we were focusing on in 2021 and how we completed them throughout the year. Again, I'm not going to read the whole thing for you. It's quite easy to read the PowerPoint points there. We did have, again, we were the recipients of the Tim Hortons Smile Cookies, which was another success, and we raised over $10,000 that went towards our Strong Kids or financial assistance for community members to use in regards to camps and memberships. So those were the priorities that we had focused on in 2021, and we feel like we have hit our goals in 2021, even with all the closures. And this is what we've kind of chatted about with a team for what we plan to do for 2022. In talking with discussions with Brandon in regards to community opportunities, we feel like getting into some of the farmers market, the gala days, the Parkdale Fair, and offering opportunities for kids to participate in those options are great ways to get the Y into the community more. And some of this has still just been in discussion. We'll figure it out how to partner with people, with organizations. We did have a great partnership with the North Middlesex Minor Hockey Association this past hockey season by offering off-ice training for the teams. And those were kids between the ages of, I would say, 8 and 12 that participated in that program and was very well received by both hockey families and the kids as well. So we hope to just achieve our membership goals for this year and our summer camp goals. And our summer camp goals are currently at 329 spaces. And we are currently 96% full with summer camps. And we have increased our summer camps in both places. Here in Park Hill, most camps have 30 campers registered each week. And in Elsie Craig, we have increased to 8 weeks of summer camp this year. And each camp week there has between 15 and 20 kids registered. And we also have included this year a specific spot in each place in each camp for inclusion campers, which is great to see because Elsie Craig's camp's inclusion spot has been filled. And with that inclusion camper, we will also have a specific camp leader for that one student, just so that they can have a good camp experience as well. But this is our financials. Again, not my 100% strong point, but I will try to explain it the best we can for this. Soy's note to me in regards to this, so I'll read what his comments were and then I can expand a little bit. So in 2021, we received $26,075 in emergency wage subsidy, compared to the $10,563 that we had anticipated. So $15,000 more, which helped us with compensation as we reopened and brought staff back. So along with the emergency wage subsidy and some of the savings just that we had while we were closed and our diligent expense management, we spent $63,000 instead of what was originally budgeted of 101. Oh, sorry, wrong one. I'm not too sure where that number came from. Sorry, folks. I'm just reading what I was sent to say for tonight. So we definitely, our expenses were down compared to what we had originally budgeted for in 2021. So we had I'm just going to say one more thing about that one. In 2021, we had budgeted a gains of $4,900, but at the end of 21, we actually had a gain of 25,900-ish there. This is just to give a brief explanation. I'm not going to really go through it much, but I put it in there, your management fee and what it all goes towards. We have a lot of support in different areas that help with promoting and marketing. And so that management fee goes to a little bit of each of those areas that help with the why here. I'm not going to read the story out. This is a local family. We always put a why story in just because we like to ensure that the community is able to, have positive things happening. So this is a current family member or family household membership that participates in a lot of the programming, both child minding and the parents. So it's a great story. They're a great family, but it's just a feel-good story. This is my staff. Again, I tell everybody I work with a great team of people. They provide some great programming, great engagement with the community, with the members, and with the kids. So I work with a great team there. And that would be it. So I'm happy to answer most questions as long as it's not some detailed financial questions. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Kathy, great presentation. Very pleased to see it. And I'm especially excited to see and hear about the financial assistance for the people in need in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a little bit more detail on how people could access those financial supports?
For sure. So we have technically a grid, a financial grid that tells us if somebody comes and provides us with the documentation that says we make, $15,000 a year, and then we use this grid to give a percentage off of a membership. And then we figure out if that works for them, or if it's still too much, then we kind of make it a payment that is feasible for them without putting a huge strain on their finances. So although we have a grid, we kind of work with what their life, because what's on paper isn't always necessarily what is in true life. So we kind of work with them in just coming up with an amount that is feasible, that is not going to prove it or provide a barrier for them.
Well, it's good to hear because I think physical activity is so critical to mental health, specifically for people in need.
Totally.
Well done.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think that the more information that we can continue to say about the financial assistance and how to figure out how to get people to be comfortable asking is a huge one too. Mhm.
Just a comment. I do know that the Y, we have members that come from Portray, Stedford, Grand Bend, Forest, like they come, they really like our facility because it's bright. There's a lot of windows and it's, there's lots of room to work out and you're not cluttered with anyone. And there's a lot of equipment and a lot of programs that's being offered. So there's a great participation with everybody. So I'm there probably maybe 4 days a week myself. So it's
Although I am always looking for more space. I am always looking for more space
Well,
usually.
I'm happy to say that the Stars are using that space right now. I'm glad to
Yes.
say that.
Yes, hopefully they're skating well and doing well at the game right now.
Other questions from council? The one thing you didn't touch on was the after-school program that you run.
Yes, so we run a recreational based morning and afternoon program for school kids. So we offer opportunities for families to drop their kids off before school at the community center. And we provide them breakfast if they haven't eaten or don't have the opportunity to eat. We provide them breakfast and a place to have free play with their friends and also have the ability to do something that is structured if they want to. And then we have a staff member that walks them to each of the prospective schools in town here. And then after school, there's 2 staff members that walk and pick up the children from each of the schools, walk back to the community center. And then we have that program that runs till 5:30, and parents have that time between 3:30 and 5:30 to pick the children up. We do offer snacks at that time as well for the kids that have eaten everything from their lunch. It's a great program. The kids love it. The parents are very appreciative of it, and it continues to grow. We have new kids joining in. Probably, I would say at least 5 or 6 each month. So it does continue to grow. And when we when it comes to the point of getting close to our ratio numbers, then we would add another staff member in so that we can allow for all families to be able to use the program.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that because you hadn't mentioned that program. It's a great program.
Yes, thank
great
you.
program.
It is and it's definitely a needed program,
Yes.
something needed in the community. So it's great.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? If not, thank you very much, Kathy.
Okay. All right.
Have a good
great
evening.
night.
Thank you.
Hopefully you get to maybe see some of this.
I think probably. All right, department reports. Drainage superintendent, the petition received, appoint engineer for the Pasco Vernon Drain.
Mayor, members of council, what you have in front of you is to receive a petition and appoint an engineer to the Pasco Branch 1997 and Vernon Branch Extension 1997 of the Stebbins Drainage Works. The recommendation is that council receive the notice of requests for major drain improvement under section 78 of the Drainage Act, and that council receive this report and appoint R. Dobbin Engineering as the engineer to the Pasco Branch 1997 and Vernon Branch Extension 1997 of the Stebbins Drainage Works. Open the floor to any questions.
Questions from council? Deputy Mayor Knowlton.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Jonathan, is that the drainage work that they wanted to enclose, is that north or south of Parkhill Drive?
South, just east of Sylvan Drive.
Right. So that'd have to be a fairly significant sized pipe, would it not?
It will, yes. Yeah, I think the area, I don't know specifically the area, but I know it's in that corner. Yeah, I think it will have to be a decent sized pipe.
Yeah, because when water goes down, there's a lot of it. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? No other questions? All right, we have a recommendation in front of us, and that's to appoint our job in engineering. Moved by Counselor Keo, seconded by Counselor Hemming. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, John. Our next is a report from the CEO entitled a 2022 update for the public concerns Mystery Falls.
Through your worship, members of council, the report before you today is an update in regards to public concerns in Mystery Falls. And the recommendation before you is that council receive the 2022 update public concerns Mystery Falls reports as information. I'm just going to highlight just some of the corrective actions that have been taking place to date and open the floor for any questions. So since this was identified about a year and a half ago from public concerns of the adjoining property, seasonal porta potties are now located on site and are the burden of ABCA. More garbage containers, including collection, are on site as well and are the burden of ABCA. It is hard to quantify this, but I am aware of an increased OPP presence has been noted in the region. And finally, that bylaw enforcement by both ABCA and in part with municipality has increased. However, enforcement remains reactive. ABCA has taken the lion's share of that. It's just more in consultation that we're aware of any issues that persist that have come up, but that's very rare from our interaction. So I'll open the floor to any questions.
All right, just a comment before I go to council. You mentioned in there about the parking lot and about increased size. And if I remember from our meeting with the deputy mayor, yourself and myself, they did not ask us to build a bigger parking lot. They did not think the municipality should spend money to build.
There, through the mayor, there was a dialogue as it relates to road improvements in the parking lot. But because of the pandemic and the ease and the change of how human behavior is for public outdoor spaces, we thought it'd be warranted to wait to reevaluate that if it was needed. So as we've come out of the pandemic, I have noted that some of the, it's hard to quantify, but I'm not getting as many concerns. I'm not getting as many emails. And I know that's the same for ABCA. Whether it comes back up, that's yet to be seen. But this was just the biggest thing that I think that the general community wanted to see was garbage collection and some access for some porta potties out there, because that's some of the sight unseen stuff that they didn't want around in their property.
Yeah, I just remember at that time they were saying they did not ask us to purchase that. Any questions from council on this? No questions. We do need a motion to receive this as information at this time. Councilor McClinchy, Deputy Mayor Ellison, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Report from the fire chief. I will mention, unfortunately, our fire chief is not feeling well tonight, but his report. Are you going to do that, Jonathan?
Through your worship, before I read the recommendation, and this is just an annual report for 2021, if there are any questions that I cannot answer that are minor in nature, we will follow up with an email. And if there's a discussion that needs to happen, we will just simply defer this item until next council. So the recommendation before you is that council receive the report titled Fire Department Annual Report 2021 for information purposes as presented.
Questions from council? No questions? No, it's a pretty good report. Like, it's a good detailed report. And no questions? Okay, so we do have another recommended motion to receive this as presented. Councillor Hemming, Councillor Keogh, all in favor? Carried. Next, a report from the finance council remuneration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Municipal Act mandates that a report must be made public in regards to the amounts paid directly to or directly on behalf of the mayor and council members for the preceding fiscal year. So the table that you have included in the report outlines these payments. I'm not going to go over them in detail. So staff recommendation tonight is that council receive report entitled Council Remuneration 2021. Any questions?
Any questions?
Nope, just comment. We didn't get to the sunshine list anyhow.
No, we didn't quite make it there, did we? I do have a question though on the mayor's line. It's showing $1,200 phone allowance.
$1,200 for telephone,
Yeah.
for cell phone? Do we not?
Well, I have a question. I believe the deputy mayor and I both have a cell phone. Yeah, well, it's through North Middlesex pays for the phone. But I just wondered,
Oh.
is that cell phone? Because I don't get an allowance for a telephone.
No,
I-
you do
we have
not.
a-
It is what we pay on your behalf.
Okay, and so there actually should be a line for the deputy mayor as well.
Then I would divide that by 2.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, but I just
Yes.
wanted to, that was just the only question.
Yes. I
Otherwise,
apologize.
I
I did not, I was not aware that deputy mayor had a cell phone.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, people get to call you 24/7.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this? No? We do have a recommendation to receive this report. Councilor McClinchy, Deputy Mayor Ellison, all in favor? Carried. Passing of accounts. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one report. Sorry, it's a small letter. And that is the 2022 wastewater rates.
Thank you,
Shouldn't
Mr.
have forgot
Mayor.
that.
I am wearing my glasses, so maybe if you were, you would have seen it on the agenda.
Good point. Earlier, I was looking for my glasses and the treasurer said, they're on your shirt. So that's. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so the memo in front of you is just outlining the 2022 water and wastewater rates for your information as approved during the 2022 passing of the budget. Since the passing of the budget, we have had questions from different council members in regards to how many accounts would fall within each one of the categories with the new calculation of the 3-year average consumption. So the table outlines each category with the corresponding amount of accounts in each category. And that is for 2022. And the memo also gave you a copy of the flyer that we will be sending out at the next billing, which is later on this month, to each of the residents, informing them of what the wastewater and water rates are for 2022. So this is really just for your information. That is correct. Yes.
This is an answer to the questions that were made from councilors. Okay. I don't think we need a motion for that, just to receive and file. Thank you. Passing of accounts. Now we'll go to that.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So the report in front of you outlines the municipality's expenses for the period of March 11th to March 30th for a total of $2,343,546.48. I open the floor to any questions that you may have.
Deputy Mayor Ellison.
Actually, my question is for the infrastructure supervisor, who does not happen to be here, but I think, Jonathan, perhaps you can answer it. I noticed that we've made another substantial installment payment, or going to be, to the water tower in Elsa Craig. When are they going to raise that tank? Do we know?
Through your worship to the deputy mayor, I know we're circling substantial completion and operation in and around September. And I would believe that the tank will be going up in the next month or so. We're planning to give out some correspondence to council when that happens. And also providing a video of it being lifted up as well, because it will be lifted by hydraulics. So more information will come, but we're still, they're getting closer. That's all I can tell you right now.
Any other questions? No other questions? We need a motion to, not to pass the bills, but to take that the report outlining the paid accounts for March 11th, 30th in the amount of 2 million plus be received. Councilor McClinchy. Second, Councilor Keogh. All in favor? Carried. Thanks,
Thank
Estelle. Committee reports. What's first? Lake Huron primary? Anything there? Nothing there? Okay, ABCA, anything?
Nothing there. I did talk with the two landowners that have some permit issues with the Essable Bayfield and hope to have them resolved shortly.
Nice, nice. Blue Water, you have the highlights. Anything you want to add to that? Okay. EDAC, LSAC, Recreation Committee, we don't have them there. Policy, we have policy meeting committee met a week, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and there's some coming forward. So, Fire Committee, is there anything with that? Aqua, nothing on Aqua. No. All right. Correspondence. Notice of public meeting, Municipality of South Huron. Receive and file. And the memorandum from Deputy Minister Kate Manson Smith, government releases release on its More Homes for Everyone plan. That's that's going to be a tough document to fulfill, isn't it? I was reading that document. I said, boy, it's good to reach, but that'll be a tough one. All right. Other and urgent business. The first one is the vibrancy fund policy, verbal update from Jackie.
Thank you, Mayor. The policy that has provided is an existing policy for the community vibrancy funds that we receive up to $255,000 through the Bornish Wind project. So as you will recall, there was some changes made to the Community Development Fund program, which does receive a proportionment of the Vibrancy Fund. So there was a few changes made there about a year ago, and it was on our list to also review this policy. And there were some deficiencies that were identified that staff felt would provide some more clarity for future staff and council members when evaluating these funds. One of the first items we identified, and these are highlighted in yellow. So any areas highlighted in yellow are proposed additions to the plan. So one of the items was interest that we didn't have, we never identified of how it would be apportioned throughout the different programs. So that will be inclusive in there. Under the Community Development Fund program, specifically, under the vibrancy portion. So when clubs apply for funding, there's a $50,000 allocation. And the trend has been allocations topping up to around 25 to 30,000, which was always leaving an additional amount each year. And we wanted to make sure that this wasn't a lost amount, that it was identified. And we felt it was appropriate through discussions at Policy Committee that this should be added to the annual budget mitigation program. So again, meaning any leftovers, if there was 20,000 left over in the 2022 allocations, that would be earmarked under the budget mitigation program. So that would allow some more room in there for projects. Under the community improvement plan, that was formerly the facade improvement program. We have proposed a reallocation of 5,000 out of the endowment program to go towards the improvement plan, which will also open up some more opportunities under that program. And again, under the endowment fund program, that's just recognizing the $5,000 deficit. Additionally, with the civil ring program through our local high school. That was also, when that program was developed, it was identified that it would be funded through the endowment interest. So this is now more clearly identified under that program. And then just an administration, last change was just changing the title of Director of Finance to Treasurer. And I believe that was all the changes proposed. So again, nothing major. It's just more some deficiencies that were identified that we felt having these additions to this policy would just make it more clear for future staff and council.
Questions on this? I'm sorry, it's a lot of cleaning up on the policy as things evolve, and I'm sure it'll be an ongoing evolution to that policy, but Councillor McClinchy.
For the from the turbines, what, you said, is it a fixed rate every year we get from the wind turbines, or
So
how does that work?
So through the mayor, out of all the turbines, if they're running at maximum output,
Okay.
that's where the $255,000 comes in.
Right.
I think it's 3,500 per 70 units, I think is the
So it's done by
calculation.
their output. We did it.
So there is times, and there has been, and the treasurer can attest to, there has been a couple of years where that's fell below the 255. But that I don't think necessarily mean, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not providing output.
Through your worship, the best way of looking at it, and that's correct, it's their program to do that, depending on wear and tear and maintenance. There is a ceiling to our arrangement, and then there's a clause at the back end for reductions in terms of a shared contribution. Let's say if they had a really bad year, or they had a reduced year in terms of not incurring costs, but revenue generated from the wind turbines, we would see a reduction in that given year. So there's a max ceiling cap, but they have a latitude to go down.
There's no guarantee on a set rate, is there?
That's the best way of looking at it. And that's a standard agreement that's carried out through the province and the country,
Okay.
as far as I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? If no questions, we're looking for a motion to approve the vibrancy fund policy. FP 02 be hereby approved as amended. Councillor Hammond, Councillor McClinchy, in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next one is compensation for management overtime and meeting time. And Jonathan, I believe you're doing that.
Through your worship, members of council, again, this is a little bit of a housekeeping policy. This will replace the regular hours of work, flexible and OT policy, and the time in lieu policy. We've had three policies kind of jockey and not sometimes jive the right way. So this is a house cleaning matter that basically puts senior staff in a time of lieu status as it relates to council, where it currently was a little vague. The important things to take out of this is that no payout of unused time in a given year will be given to the senior staff. It's simply a time in lieu and changing culture in terms of flexible working arrangements in taking out the time in the same pay period. And there's certain parameters that go through, what classification and pay band. Time in lieu is anticipated to be flexible work time for your schedule and taken in the same pay period. And again, just some general housekeeping at the back. So I'll put it to the table or put it to the floor for any questions.
Questions on this? No questions. Again, it's another housekeeping and it really cleans those policies up. We are looking for someone to make the motion to pass this. Councillor Keogh, Deputy Mayor Canellison, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Jonathan. And Jackie, I think you have the next item.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to provide a brief update to council. So there was a candidate information session that the Middlesex County Clerks organization put together. It was mainly a virtual event on Monday, April 4th. However, I opened up the council chambers that would allow in-person candidates to attend to watch the presentation being held. However, there was no uptake on that at all, which was somewhat disappointing, I have to say, in an election year. However, you open these events up and that's what happened. There will be other initiatives through the clerks groups to engage candidates for our upcoming election. And that's about all I can comment on.
Anyways, we'll carry on. Any other business? Any other business anyone wants to bring forward? No other business? Okay, so deferred items are in front of you. Communications, including county council.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I noticed that Johnson sent out an email today for Middlesex Day, which is coming up on May the 12th in Thorndale. I can't remember the time. Jonathan, I don't know if you do or not.
Through your worship, I wasn't actually able to really read the email except for the title and then
I can't forward the time.
Yes.
actually going to provide that through the next council agenda as
Okay.
well, just so council has an opportunity to consider
It
it.
is an all day, it is an all day event, like an all.
And the only other thing I have, and Mayor Rupp, I'm not sure if you got that report from Dirk on building activities in the outside the city of London. It was very interesting read. I don't know, did any of the other councilors get it? I'd be more than happy to
It's on
forward
the,
it.
it's on the county agenda. That's maybe one we can
Yeah,
bring forward to put on other correspondence or
but
something.
it's a very interesting read and it really highlights the extensive development happening outside of the city of London. And I found it really interesting.
And the city of London is noticing, like, how much is growing outside the city.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'll
So
see if I
maybe
can
we
forward it to
can,
you.
maybe we can upload that and put it on for correspondence for the next meeting.
Yeah, that's all I have, Mayor Rupp. I don't know if you have anything.
I would just add on to it that there's a notice of motion came to county council, and that has to do with the painting of crosswalks. Because we're getting, from separate, from individual groups that want to have different colors painted on their side, on their crosswalks and stuff. I think the indigenous community has asked for different ones as well. So that'll be coming to the next meeting to put a policy together on going forward. And I think that would help because a lot of the crosswalks we would be county. So they would put a policy together, and if it's a good policy, maybe we could use it at the lower tier as well.
Just a question. So you would say about the indigenous, are there going to be different kinds? Like, are they? gonna
Well,
have-
it's just a notice of motion that I'm bringing forward.
Oh,
that-
okay, so
Just to let you know that they are going to look at that to make a policy on that to form what's acceptable, also who pays for it, that type of thing. So, yeah. that's
is it
just
something
a-
what Grand Bend has?
Well, that's one possibility, correct. And then, so that's because it's becoming into our communities now. Strathroy is dealing with it right now. So just to get ahead of it and to make a policy together for it. So I think that's it from yesterday. Reading of the bylaws.
On your agenda this evening, there's bylaws listed, number 28 to 35. We're looking for first and second reading for bylaw 28, 30 to 35.
Councillor McClinchy, Councillor Keo, all in favor? Carried.
And we're looking for third and final reading on bylaw 30, 31, 33 to 35.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Hemming, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. For provision to go to closed meeting, we do have two items. I am suggesting that we table with loss of two councillors not here tonight, that we table the second item. So we would go in close for personal matters about identifiable, including municipal or local board employees, HR organizational update. So I need a motion to go into closed. Councillor Keo, Deputy Mayor Canales, all in favor? Carried.